Leave it to the engineers to figure some things out.
We're open for a suggestion. Obviously, you know what
Well,
we're
he's trying to sketch and draw up, and he said even if you kept the shadow box fence at the top of the retaining wall, because of the elevation difference between the loading dock and the home.
It's going to be too low.
Well, it's not actually.
Okay.
It would still provide that barrier because you're going to be at this angle. What I was concerned about is that setting it down on the retaining wall probably wouldn't provide any additional screening, but because the grade is dropping anyway, it does provide additional screening. So, you know, we can certainly, we'll look at it either way. Trying to keep it up there if we've got the grade there to be able to run it behind the curb.
Behind the curb before it drops off.
And so, you know, yeah, I think it's on a 3-to-1, so we should have plenty of room
what
there.
you're kind of thinking of?
That is exactly what I'm thinking. That's probably more than 100 feet, though, being that rear property line under your red pin is 210 feet. That's probably more like maybe 125, 150 feet. But if that fits, I think that's going to do a pretty good job of noise abatement behind both the compactor and the loading dock.
So do you want to specify that from halfway through the trucks to the compactor?
Well, or my thought would maybe just have a number, if it's 100 to 125 feet, and say just center line it on the end of that loading dock.
I think more than 125.
And it might be by the time you scale that out. Are you following along with what we're thinking here? I mean, are you guys comfortable with the direction we're going?
I think so, yeah.
We obviously appreciate it, and I know ultimately that homeowner in that house is going to appreciate it.
Sure, and again, I apologize for not having contacted them myself. Again, not knowing that process, but...
Well, it's not a formal process. We don't require you to contact them. Right. Just sometimes when you get into these sort of things, Oh, that distance that you've drawn there? It doesn't look like it's more than that rear property line, but maybe it is.
I was using my pen as a scale, but I was using the traffic scale.
I said the property line's 209.
That building, I think, is around 249, 250 feet long, so that probably is about 180 feet.
Well, we're drawing from red mark to red mark is kind of what you think is that. So what's the total? You said the total is 250 on that building?
Isn't that correct? We'll look at it. So I guess that building is right at 250.
It's 209 for that property line.
Yeah,
I was kind of scaling it based off that property line.
So why not just make it match the property line? Let 209, whatever it is, that pin to that pin, make the fence cover that projected. If you just project that property line over and do it there.
We have formally put something in the site plan that only protects that one homeowner. And
well, if you look at the separation from the others,
say, well, you did it from their property line to their property line, and I feel a little uncomfortable saying we're picking from pin to pin.
I think part of it, though,
it's no different than just saying I'm picking
from
here to here, and I've got something that's a defined spot that I don't have to worry about dimensions or miscommunication of I'm 50 feet that way or 75 feet that way.
I agree. I'm just worried about the other homeowner saying, well, you did it for my neighbor. How come you're not doing it for me?
Well, you're not going to be doing it for him if you do it your way. You're going to be doing a shorter
I'm really just trying to screen just the loading areas where I think most of the noise is going to come from.
Well, it's centered kind of almost in that property line. Mm-hmm. So it's not ambiguous just to say
it happens to be centered on that house and that property.
Well, see, what I have drawn there is really kind of centered on the compactor and on the loading area. And yes, it does extend beyond the loading area to where the trucks are. So I think that solves the concern about just doing it for the one property owner, because you're not really looking at the property that's behind there. You're looking at what they're actually installing. So you're screening that. You know,
kind of in both directions. You've got kind of a little bit of screening going that direction, a little bit of screening going
that you're kind of getting it a little bit, extending
it
it beyond in both directions, so you're being a little bit more encompassing.
I support this. If you guys want to hash out the details of how long it is later by just scaling this off later, I'd be completely in support of what you've drawn here if you're good with that, Danny.
Yeah, I think we're okay with that.
Okay.
So, Ruth, how are you going to write that up that we...
I am going to write that up as at the loading dock and compactor, provide shadow box wall, provide shadow box fence, 1 to 2 feet behind curb. Is that good?
Items that you wanted to?
I don't think so, Grant. You have any? I think we're okay with everything else.
Okay, the only changes then we have from this list is on number 9, as I read earlier. It will read, add a sidewalk between the driveway and the shops. And then number 11 would read, at the loading dock and compactor, provide shadow box fence 1 to 2 feet behind curb. Is that good? Okay.
I was just going to, I'd refer to this document as your source document, and you guys
How
get
to
together
scale it
and
off.
scale it off. I mean, I'm plus or minus 5 feet in either direction, but basically
Scale
based
this,
off
I
Scale off what,
have
though?
a scale in front of me, so.
Area.
See, if you're doing that, are you going to here and past this property line? Or,
we got a
okay.
meeting
I
of
think
the minds.
it's roughly, I'm going to guess it's roughly
You drawing it
200
there,
feet.
or you
Yeah,
drawing it
Okay.
there?
I'll say, I'll put in
That's-
parentheses approximately
Okay.
200 feet.
So
How's
there's
that
that way
sound?
there's general
Okay.
I
understanding.
don't know
we
what we're
discussed.
saying.
Let me read that again, because we've kind of cobbled this together. Okay. At the loading dock and compactor, provide a shadow box fence 1 to 2 feet behind the curb, and then in parentheses, approximately 200 feet in length. Is that good?
Well, there's no ambiguity with we're talking maybe a 6-foot
No, I
fence,
don't
right?
think so.
So
Yeah.
we're okay. We're just
Yeah, I mean, when we all say shadow box,
I
we're all
agree, 6 feet.
assuming a 6-foot fence. I don't know.
Right.
I mean, isn't that
Show this
standard?
drawing. This is the one that's in the package, the plot plan. But it shows the property line. I mean, I think you've got it right here. This tick mark right here. I think that's this one. Okay. Your red line, if I said, okay,
According to this is where the house is.
right? Now tell me how your red line is not still just with that one property.
Mostly because if the goal is... Mostly because if your goal is to be, I mean, from my perspective, and what originally triggered this was with regards to the noise with the loading dock, because that's where you get people talking, and an extended period of noise rather than a trash compactor where they come in, grab it, and leave, which is quicker than an unloading situation, is that the compactor is secondary and is actually a reference point for distance from my perspective. What I'm looking at is this angle here, and by extending it to the, toward the front, halfway through the truck, because your people are actually going to be back in this area, you're also extending it from this view.
I think what Ed's concern is.
What I was
let me
doing was
throw
trying
this
to
out.
extend it just up to the other top property line to capture more of the truck area. That's all I was,
Oh, you mean extending it
yeah, to that property line.
north a little bit?
Yeah.
Couldn't we just use a reference point of the southeast corner of the building and then extend it 200 feet north from there? I mean, that's going to do it. That gives you a starting point. That's going to take it past the trash compactor. You basically start off the corner of that building.
200 feet from this point
Yeah.
will not get it up that far.
Oh, based on that scale, it
I
looks
think
like
we
it
use
might.
I think we use the center line of the loading dock. I think we're going to be in pretty good shape. So basically, the center line of the fence and the center line loading dock are going to be the same thing.
Okay, so you want to use right...
Well, no, it's different than what Ron's saying.
Okay.
Ron's saying do it from off the corner of the building, but I guess what my thought is our focus was the loading dock, so I was trying to kind of stick to that.
So if we, that might be easiest, though, is to go 200-foot fence measured from the center point of the fence being the center point of the loading dock.
But is it, you know, and it's hard when we don't have the perfect scale here. Is that going to come far enough back to take care of that trash compactor?
Yeah, I think it's plenty. Quite honestly, I think 200 feet is probably more
Okay.
than adequate. I think 200 feet is actually maybe a little more than we've drawn based upon that property line being 210.
Cover
So I
almost
think
the
our red
property.
lines are actually, that red line's actually going to grow a little
Okay.
bit based on using the 200 feet.
I'm
So I
fine
think-
with that. It
I
just
think
gives,
200
it gives
feet's
us that
plenty.
reference point to start from. That was your main concern, to know where do you.
Yeah, when I said the property line, it was
So-
209, now
Yeah.
we're saying 200. It encompasses what we need to encompass.
Right.
I'm fine with what Noah said.
Okay. So,
Work with that.
We can work with that.
loading dock, provide shadow box, 200-foot shadow box fence centered on center of loading dock, 1 to 2 feet behind curb. Good? Good.
I've got a question. As a courtesy, do we tell this home? I mean, or surprise? I mean, of course they know it's commercial property, no doubt.
Basically, we send out agendas to, we put it on our website. Okay, let me start over. The minimum requirements of the law is that it be posted in the newspaper. We also put it on our website. We put it on the roll screen, and we send out to the homeowner association list. So,
I guess what I'd like to offer is, years ago when this was rezoned, I was not a part of this commission, but I was just a citizen that either watched it in person or at home. Well, maybe I was real bored, I'm not sure, but nevertheless, there was a lot of public input that, and there was a great compromise and a lot of negotiating that ended up coming down. That is why there's a 50-foot buffer today.
That's true.
versus a
Otherwise,
35
really,
foot.
if there was just a C1 backing up to an O1 or an R1, there'd be a 35-foot buffer.
Right.
So there was actually a buffer in excess of our zoning requirement, and I think that was, and there was a tremendous amount of homeowner association presidents and homeowner association residents that were involved in that process, and I think that I would have a real hard time delaying the applicant with trying to involve. Obviously, if this was rezoning, it'd be a little bit different, but I think we're really going above and beyond, and the applicant is cooperating with the shadow box fence, which is really not even required. But we understand that there's going to be some noise generated back there. They want to be good neighbors, and we're putting it here in our subject twos. So I guess with that being said, if unless Danny had any other questions, or if there's any other questions from the audience, I'd like to make a motion for approval based with these subject twos and also the corrections that Ruth has made this evening.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you for working with us.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. Hope to have some kind of announcement soon, so.
Discussion and public hearing on a site plan for Wild Wings Cafe, 11335 Campbell Lakes Drive, parcel 184.02, tax map 130, zone C-2, 3.88 acres to add a cable wakeboard system. David McFarland, applicant, and he has asked that this be postponed.
yes, ma'am.
Is that all? We don't need to?
Yeah, then you don't need to take any
Okay.
action on it.
Then we'll move on to item number 6, discussion and public hearing on a request to amend the Farragut subdivision regulations, Article 3A 14, to allow private streets. The Cove at Turkey Creek Homeowners Association applicant.
We discussed this extensively at a May Planning Commission meeting, and we do have a couple of folks on the commission tonight that were not here for that May discussion. So I included much of the same information that was in the May Planning Commission packet. To give you a background of the history of private streets in the town used to allow private streets. And around in 2002, Glen Abbey subdivision residents formally requested that their private streets be taken over by the town, and the residents stated that they had purchased their homes unaware that the neighborhood streets were private and what that meant to them financially. The Planning Commission and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen denied their request. During the same time, other subdivisions with private streets began facing the same situation as Glen Abbey. And like the Glen Abbey residents, the other subdivision residents also stated they were not aware that their streets were private and what that meant to them financially.